First of all, my name's Neil. I run a service called Inside the League. I think most of y'all probably know me, but for those of you who don't, we've been around since 2002. We're kind of the business-to-business service, especially for the scouting and agent industry. My friend Peter, who's going to be our host tonight, got certified a few years ago as an agent and even got a player drafted, I believe, last year, which is a monumental accomplishment for a new agent. But more importantly, he began talking to me probably, I don't know, 2 years ago about NIL and the direction it was taking and where he saw it going, and was really pretty prescient on what has happened so far. But more so, he kind of put his money where his mouth is, and he started Athliance, which is a company that he'll talk about a little bit more as we go forward. But Athliance has software that I'm not sure how much he'll show it tonight, but it's available for demo for anyone who's interested. But it's really good at more or less keeping the communication lines open with everyone, allowing everyone, the school, the business, the sponsor, the endorser, and the player as well, and his representation, kind of on the same page with respect to all the terms of everything. And I think that provides a level of transparency that's really needed these days when there's so many questions and it's such a kind of a wide open space. But Peter's not going to be talking as much necessarily about the details and the finer points of Athliance. He's going to be talking more about how you can make NIL work for you, especially if you're in the player representation space. And that's where I think most of the people that are on tonight are, although there are a few others that I saw that from the NFL scouting space and others that are joining us just, I guess, because they just kind of want to listen in, and they're welcome to. So before we get started, I'm sure there'll be questions. Please help us out by putting them in the chat feature. And once Peter's done, we'll kind of revisit those. Normally, I encourage people to just kind of unmute and fire away, but we've got, we're going on 100 people that are going to be in this, and I think that may get a little disordered if we do it. So I think in order to make sure we get to all the questions and make sure that we have a somewhat uninterrupted presentation, I'm going to ask y'all to do that. So please just put your questions in the chat box. That way I can read them. No one will miss them. We'll make sure that we get to them. And also, please don't forget to mute, just because as you come in, you should be muted when you come in. But if you don't, for any reason you unmute, then please mute back. We just don't want to interrupt the integrity of what Peter's got to say. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Peter. It's all yours, brother.
Thank you, Neil, and appreciate everyone coming on today. We're going to talk about how to NIL for agents. And I like to think I'm in a unique position because what Athliance does is we are a disclosure and education software where we license our software to universities. We are in the compliance space, but we also work with collectives. We work with agents. We work with marketplaces. We work with athletes. So we touch a little bit of everything in the space. We see what's going on. And with my legal background, we kind of understand where the legislation is and what's going on and what you can and can't do. Neil brought it up. I have a unique perspective as well as someone who is registered. Just so everyone knows, I don't know if I'm going to probably continue with that. I got a lot on my plate and the software industry's booming. Let's put it that way. So I'm more here to help you all and kind of talk about small wins in the space, big wins in the space, recruiting tactics for you all. We'll talk a little bit of the compliance legislation aspect and adding value to clients, because NIL, in my opinion, is the great equalizer. Okay. It allows young agents to take that next step up. It allows agents who want to take that next step, reach that level, and it allows the big dogs to stay on top. The key is you got to know what you're doing. You got to know what's out there. You got to know how to help the kids, and you got to know how to stay compliant. So we're going to talk about all of that today. We're not going to talk too much. I want to leave it open for demo. I am going to allow and show a little bit of our software, but I also want to allow Q&A. I know that we're going to leave this open for longer than an hour. For anyone that wants to stay on and keep doing questions, we're going to go ahead and do it. But let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. And we're going to get into the presentation. So again, I'm the CEO of Athliance. Essentially what Athliance does is when a student athlete gets an opportunity, they can go into our software with the schools we're working with, okay, and disclose the terms of their deal to make sure they're not getting taken advantage of and make sure they're not violating any of the NCAA legislation. But what we learned very early on is that there are three main pillars where NIL deals come from, okay? Agents brokering deals, marketplaces, and collectives. And we're going to touch on all of those things. All right. We have created softwares that work with collectives, that work with agents and the marketplaces. So you all can provide a service by disclosing those deals to the university so the student athlete doesn't have to, in order for everyone to remain compliant. Because when you send a deal to the school, it is up to them to make an eligibility determination. And if you disclose a deal or the student athlete discloses a deal and the school doesn't say anything, if there's an issue down the road, it's on the school now. It is not on you. Okay. So it's a great way to protect yourself. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I want to talk more today about how you can make your practice better, how you can offer more value, and how you can help athletes succeed in this new space, because that's going to help you succeed. So we all know for the first time in 115 years, student athletes can finally profit off their name, image, and likeness. Okay. What we're seeing in the space, though, isn't 100% name, image, and likeness. All right. Name, image, and likeness is the right to use your publicity. We're hearing a lot about inducement, a lot of pay for play. I'm going to talk to you all about how to protect yourself from that. But this is a great thing. But the problem in the space right now is confusion leads to inaction. Agents don't know what's out there. They don't know what they can do. So a lot of agents don't want to get into the space. Athletes don't know what they can do. They don't know where to go. A lot of them don't think NIL is for them. Every athlete in the country, and we're seeing it, whether you're D1, D2, or D3, has the ability at a minimum, if you know what you're doing, to make $1,000 a month, especially on the football side. So for a lot of the agents in here, if you follow what we're talking about, you're going to really be able to add good value with big and small deals if you know where to go and you know what to do. But once you lift that confusion, once you have clarity, once you understand the rules and you know what's out there, you can get to acting, you can get to making money, and you can do it in a safe and fair way. So let's talk about marketplaces, because one of the biggest, easiest wins that you can do for your clients is sign up for some of these platforms. Icon Source, Market Price in the bottom right, that's PRYCE, Mogul, NoCap, Dreamfield. And again, we can send out some of this information after. You can sign up for these platforms, and a lot of them are free. Some of them are like $9 a month. And you can help athletes broker deals with brands. And it doesn't have to be big deals. You go on Icon Source or Market Price, you're going to see companies like Bird Dogs, where they're offering Division I football players that if they post on their social media about the company, they will send them a free pair of shoes and $250. Those deals are all over these platforms. The problem is the student athletes don't have the time to go through them. The student athletes don't know where to go. They don't even know how to accept. Some of them don't even know how to post and put together a good message. So as an agent, if you can go ahead and sign up for them as an agent, or you can sign up as an athlete and manage their account, there is no reason that you can't help your athletes on these platforms, just on these alone, make $500 to $1,000 a month. Okay. Essentially, again, what these platforms do is it allows brands and athletes to go on and broker NIL deals. Most of the times brands will post their deals and you apply for them, or they'll even list, if you're a Division I athlete or a Division I football player, click here. These are easy wins. All it does is take a little bit of scrolling every night, signing up for the deals, helping your athletes post, and all of a sudden you're showing value without them having to do it. What's really cool for most of the companies on here, though, is if you get a deal and you accept for the athlete or the athlete accepts through their profile, Athliance has an integration where we link up to all of these platforms and we make sure the deal is automatically disclosed to the university. And if not, if you're worried about it, we're going to show you a software today where you can input it yourself, all right, and make sure that it's disclosed. But these are really easy wins that we recommend for everyone. So go sign up for them after tonight, or at least go play around on them. Local businesses. College football players are in small communities, okay, where businesses love ball. The problem is these local businesses don't know where to go to get deals. They don't know how to contact athletes. They don't even know what they can do. Okay. So what we recommend to athletes, and it's probably stronger with agents, is to go ahead and curate really strong, grammatically correct messages and reach out to these businesses, whether it's email or through Instagram, and say, let's say in Tallahassee, Florida State, where I went, there's a place called Gordo's. It's a famous Cuban restaurant that everyone wants to go to. Now, if you're an athlete, you can say, hi, my name is Peter Schoenthal. I'm a football player at Florida State. Gordo's is one of my favorite restaurants. As you know, I now can use my name, image, and likeness to promote businesses and profit individually. I have 6,000 followers on my Instagram. Here are my analytics. I would like to discuss with you about doing an NIL deal where I can promote your business, drive traffic, come in, do a post, and we can talk about money or free meals or whatever it might be. Okay. And we're seeing a lot of success. You send 5 or 10 of these out, and all of a sudden you're going to get at least one of them. Mass templating, mass reaching out. You can do it for goods, swag, services. Now, a lot of these athletes are also big names where they come from, right? They might not be a big name in Tallahassee, and you might be getting in with them early on because you see potential in that freshman backup offensive lineman. Just because they don't have a lot of value on campus doesn't mean they don't have value anywhere else. The best way is to start reaching out to these businesses because they want to help. It might not be $1,000 deal. It might not be a $5,000 deal. But between this and the marketplaces, this is how you're hitting a bunch of singles, which lead to money. This is how you're showing value and getting $1,000 a month for your kid or more just on the marketplaces and with these local restaurants, body shops, PI attorneys, you name it. If it's a business that supports the football team, this is a great creative way to give back to the athletes. But the key for agents, okay, and this is where you all come in, is the actual carrying out of the opportunity. One of the big issues in this space is some of the businesses that do know about NIL, they want to work with athletes, but athletes have a bad reputation in college about doing the bare minimum as it pertains to their NIL deals. So if you can show as a representative that you're going to help the athlete, okay, and that the athlete will actually allow the business to get good ROI, you're not just going to get one deal, you're going to get follow-up deals. And then all of a sudden, these businesses all talk, these message boards talk. And now you're creating recurring revenue for your athlete and therefore helping them build their brand, okay, and build their stature. The first thing I would do when speaking with an athlete is make sure that they turn their Instagram, their Twitter, or whatever social media they have into a business profile. So you can also show the analytics, because if you do a deal with Gordo's or with Lee's Chicken and the athlete has 6,000 followers, but you can show that they had engagement with 1,500 people, that is the same analytics that maybe someone with 20,000 followers have, because student athletes have such good engagement. And you can actually drive up the price for the opportunities you're getting by showing proof of concept with those businesses. All right. So there's a lot of value in this, and there's a lot that you can do to help these student athletes. I mentioned charity at the bottom. We're going to talk about philanthropic efforts in a little bit with a specific example.
Peter, can you talk before we go further about engagement versus actual, that 6,000 versus that 1,500 and what that means?
Absolutely. Okay. So when you have like a normal social influencer that has 10,000 followers, I believe the math on that is their engagement is like 10%, which means when they post, for every 10,000 followers, maybe 1,000 people will actually stop on the post, look at it, like it, and comment. Student athletes at colleges are more at a 25% clip. Okay. So for every post, they have about, if they have 10,000 followers, they're getting 2,500 impressions. Okay. That's very important because it's not always about followers. It's about impressions and analytics. I don't care how many people might see it. I want to know who's actually going to see it. And if you can show those numbers and someone tries to lowball you, now you can go ahead and get those dollars that you want. And by the way, now you're showing the athlete that you represent, hey, I'm getting you the same money that someone with 100,000 followers has, and you've only got 50,000 followers. There's great value in that. All right, camps and lessons. Every student athlete that you all are recruiting, has a name where they're from. They were a recruit. They were a great high school football player. The youth in their neighborhoods and their communities know who they are. Every student athlete has the ability when they go home in the summer or when they're on campus to put on a camp, but not everyone knows how to do it. This is where you as an agent can really come in and create value. And the value you're creating, by the way, is going to lead to trust, which is going to allow you to potentially stay on with these athletes when they take the next step or get in with their friends and teammates, right? So when you put on a camp, there's a lot of things you can do as an agent to help the athlete. One, reach out to their high school, right? Their high school coach. Hi, I represent so-and-so. We want to come back and put on a camp. What do I have to do to secure the field? Most of the time, they're going to give it to you for free. Okay. How can I get some of the coaches to come and help? They're going to offer their time. Maybe you can talk to some of their teammates to come, give their time. Okay. You can help with waivers to make sure everyone's protected. You can help get shirts done, go through the drills. All right. So let's do a little bit of math, right? Very simple. If a student athlete goes home, right, and they have a decent name and they get 65 kids to show up and they have $50 a camp, like a participant, right? These are reasonable numbers. For 1 day's work, you've just made your student athlete $3,250. After maybe shirts, if you do that, maybe you're at $3,000. You should be able to get the park for free. That's 1 day's work. You can do a camp in the spring, in the winter, in the summer, and you could be a part of that. Listen, you do 3 camps and you make them even just $2,500. That's $7,500. Now, all of a sudden, you're doing other things to create $1,000 a month. You're into $20,000 a year by doing the limited stuff without having a student athlete that might be a Heisman Trophy winner or someone that has 200,000 followers. But let's take it a step further. In the offseason, when they're on campus, let's say I have an offensive lineman. Every Thursday, they want to do lessons. I'm going to hold lineman camp. They secure a field, all right, and you cap it at maybe 15 kids, all right? So every Thursday, 15 kids from the ages of 14 to 18 while you're in high school come out. I'm going to give you lessons. We're going to run drills, and I'm going to help you become a college athlete if possible. And let's say you charge $25, okay, per kid every Thursday. So if you get 20 kids to show up at $25, that's $500. If you do that every Thursday, that's $2,000 a month. All right. You can do private lessons, right? You have a quarterback that you're representing. There are parents that will pay $100, $200 an hour to work with a college quarterback. All that you have to do as an agent is make sure you can find a field, get the waivers done, and then reach out to the local parks, reach out to the local high schools, reach out to the 7-on-7 teams. Let them know that it's out there. And maybe the first 5 or 6 kids show up, set proper expectations, but you're building it. You hit enough singles and doubles, you're going to score a lot of runs. All right, let's talk collectives. Collectives are the hot topic in the space. And for those of you that don't know, they're basically booster groups that are basically raising money to do NIL deals. We work with a lot of them. Don't listen to the media. Most of them are doing it the right way, okay? But as an agent, all right, if you know a collective, the problem with the collectives are the student athletes aren't reaching out to them. The collectives are having a hard time getting in contact with the kids and also making sure that they follow through on the deal if the collective sets up an appearance at a pizza shop. You can be a part of that. All right. These collectives are pooling $500,000, $1 million, $5 million, and they need that money to go somewhere. Why not your student athlete? Okay. But you all have to be very careful. Okay. Especially if you get into the high school recruiting. Okay. Let's use an example. All right. You cannot do NIL deals as an inducement. Okay. So what I mean is the deal cannot be contingent on an athlete going to a school or remaining at a school. So you can't get a kid an NIL deal so long as he stays at the University of Miami, or you can't get an NIL deal so long as, he goes to the University of Miami. And everyone thinks the NCAA is done. They are not. And they've actually smartened up, and I'm going to explain it in a little bit. All right. Let's use John Ruiz as an example in Miami. I have no idea if he's doing anything wrong, but he's all in the media. So let's talk about it. Let's say you're an agent and you send a text message and say, hey, I represent so-and-so. If you want him to go to the University of Miami, I need a $50,000 deal. Or I represent so-and-so. If we don't get this type of deal, we're transferring. All right. And then you get the deal or you don't. Let's say the NCAA actually goes after John Ruiz. And I'm going to explain how they can go after boosters in a moment and agents in a moment. All right. And they hit John Ruiz with a penalty because he did something wrong. And I don't know if he did. I'm just using an example because everyone knows him. And John Ruiz says, screw this. I don't think the rules are fair. I'm going to sue the NCAA in federal court. All right. He'll lose that. And I'll explain why in a moment. For a lot of lawyers on here, you know, step one in a lawsuit is the discovery process. If you send one of those emails and you send one of those texts, you're getting outed. It's coming out in discovery. You are going to get in trouble. There are going to be ramifications. The NCAA can come down on you. But more importantly, the one area where the state laws matter, because they don't matter, but the one area they matter is the states have the ability to go after you. So you have to be careful. It could also impact your NFLPA registration as well. All right. So how can you talk to collectives? You talk in fact. When you speak to a collective, ask them about their data. How much is in the pool? How much have you collected? What are your deal averages? Okay. If you represent a quarterback, what did the starting quarterback get last year? What did the incoming recruit quarterback get? Now you understand the deal averages. So when you speak with your client and you even speak with the collective, you can say, I just want to know the facts. And and what you tell your student athlete is they have all the power, because the collectives know if you know the data and they don't take care of your athlete with real NIL deals, they have to actually use their name, image, and likeness. That student athlete's going to transfer. Okay. And they're going to tell all of their friends that are recruits and at other schools, this school's not doing it the right way. They're making false promises and no one's going to go there. Okay. You hold all the power. You don't have to be crazy. You don't have to step over the line. There's the right and wrong ways to do this. And we can talk afterwards about how to deal with collectives, but you have to understand why the NCAA can go after you and go after boosters. Right now, there are 3 basic rules in NIL. Okay. You have no inducement, which means a deal can't be contingent on enrollment. Okay. No pay for play. I can't give you an NIL deal for scoring a touchdown. And there's got to be a quid pro quo. You got to do something for the deal. You got to actually use your name, image, and likeness. All right. But everyone talks about Alston and how the NCAA can't do anything because of antitrust stuff. Without going too far down the rabbit hole, there's not a lot of antitrust issues if the NCAA goes after schools, collectives, and somehow agents. Okay. Antitrust has to do with the athletes not having the ability to have a voice at the table as it pertains to the rules that they follow. But if we go to Alston, everyone's overblowing it. This is what Alston really stands for. All right. The NCAA is in fact a governing body and allowed to be so. All right. Their mission is to promote competitive balance and uniform rules, so long as the rules are reasonable and there might be antitrust issues. All right. So let's now go forward from Alston. The NCAA punts on NIL, but they give you those 3 rules. But 27 states enacted a bill that basically copied the original NCAA legislation from November of 2020, which you don't need to concern yourself with. Okay. All the state bills are really the same though, if you think about it. And then 1,000 schools enacted policies that basically also copy that bill. All right. Then signing day happens and you have every athletic director and coach in the country saying, we need more rules. Nobody can argue that the rules wouldn't be reasonable if enforced. All right. If every state deemed them to be necessary, every school deemed them to be necessary, and every actor in the space is saying we need more rules. But more importantly, let's focus on those 3 rules. Hard to argue that 3 rules are unreasonable. But the NCAA recently said they can retroactively go after any wrongdoers besides student athletes if they violate the inducement rule. Because what they did is they further defined inducement and they further defined booster and tied it back to old recruiting rules, which is boosters and individuals cannot play a part in the recruitment of athletes unless you work at the university. They can't play a part in the transfer portal unless they work for a university. And you sure as hell can't have, tamper with kids to get them to leave schools. So you have to be careful. This is They are not dead. Don't do anything that could hurt you down the road for short-term game. And we'll talk a little bit more about that if you have questions. But collectives can be your best friend. So I don't want to go over too many specific examples, but I want to talk about Dylan Gibbons, because if you have student athletes that have a philanthropic purpose, they want to get involved in charity, you can do some cool stuff and there can be personal benefits that come with it. But obviously we know we're starting 501c3s and charities. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and these student athletes don't always know how to do it. So Dylan Gibbons is an offensive lineman at Florida State. All right. He transferred from Notre Dame. The first game of the season last year was Florida State against Notre Dame in Tallahassee. There was a fan at Notre Dame of Dylan's named Timothy Donovan. He had severe physical disabilities and handicap. So Dylan started a GoFundMe called Timmy to Tally, where he raised $20,000 to get Timothy down to Tallahassee to watch the first game. Really awesome. The Florida State fan base really chipped in, and it was great. Next thing you know, Tom Rinaldi picked up a story. All right. It goes on game day. Dylan Gibbons went from like 5,000 followers to about 50,000 followers in a day. Now he's one of the leading NIL participants and moneymakers at Florida State. All right. You can get creative. You can do fun stuff and do the right thing while increasing value. And by the way, by starting that 501c3, when the athlete, if you are lucky enough to get that athlete to stick with you and go to the NFL, you're already set up. You're already running the show. You've entrenched yourself in their lives, and it makes them harder to get rid of you. Show value. This is your chance to take that next step. I'm not going to talk too much about building your brand. That's not my forte. But like we say, if your mama won't like it, don't post it. All right. That's the number one rule in this game. Disclose, disclose, disclose. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but it is not really anyone's job to try to understand the NCAA rules, the federal rules that are coming, the state bills, the school policies. If you disclose the deals, which the student athletes aren't doing, and you help them do it, okay, you are taking the onus off yourself and the student athlete, and you're putting the pressure on the school, and that's what the school wants. If you're disclosing the deals and you're communicating with the school, they trust you. They love it because they know that's not happening. So when it comes time to now continue recruiting and try to get other athletes, they're going to be more likely to let you on campus. They're going to be more likely to work with you. They're going to be more likely to give a thumbs up when the student athletes ask questions, okay? And they ask about your reputation. By doing the right thing with the school, it's going to increase your profile, okay, at that university. Do the right thing and be proactive with it. And we're going to run a little demo and show you how you can do that. This is another way where you can show value. We talk to student athletes all the time that the real key to NIL is not the 4 years in school, but the 40 years. All right. We know that when student athletes go into the real world, if they get jobs, they have these elite skill sets like time management, overcome adversity, work well with others, but now they can sell themselves, right? They can say, I've registered an LLC. They can say, I've filed my taxes. They can say, I've negotiated contracts. I've built my brands. I obtained a trademark. All right. And that's important. Even if you're not looking for a job, that's important when you have to go to the pros or while you're in school. I'm going to give a great tax story in a moment. If you all can help these student athletes at that time, you're offering a huge value. And let me give you a recruiting trick. Let's say you're recruiting a student athlete and you're speaking with them and mom's in the room. And one of the questions that they bring up, obviously, is NIL, because while they're in college, you're really only representing them for NIL. And they say, how are you going to help me with NIL? You counter with this. All the stuff that I brought up, but you say, so you want to be a business? Yes, sir. You want to be a businessman? Yes, sir. Pull out your computer and register them in LLC on the spot and look them in the eye and say, well, now you're a business. I'm going to help you and show you the ropes to stay protected and make money. And we're going to build your value together, and I'm going to protect you. You can help them with their trademarks. You can help them with the negotiation of the contracts. You can help them with taxes. Taxes is one of the biggest issues in the space. Spoke with a University of Miami football player a few weeks ago. Known him for a very long time. I asked him, how did you do in NIL from July 1st to December 31st? Oh, I did great. I made $50,000. And he's a big time player over there. I said, awesome. I said, how much do you owe in taxes? He said, well, You know, I was told that if all my deals were under $10,000, I don't owe taxes. So I structured a bunch of $9,999 deals. I was like, how much did you save? Zero. I kind of ran through the money. I made a bunch of mistakes. All right. Met with the accountant the other day. What do you owe? $14,000. I said, all right. You didn't have an LLC and write off those meals, did you? No, sir. I said, how you paying that back? I got to go get more NIL deals to afford my taxes because I'm on a lien. All right. Taxes are the new student loan for student athletes. You can tell these stories in the living room. All right. And show how you're going to protect them. And one of the best way to have that data is to disclose deals. And now you have your records. Okay. And Athliance can help you with that. The student athletes don't understand that. Their parents might not understand that. If you can go to a living room and talk about, hey, there's going to be tax consequences. Here's how we're going to help you by setting up an LLC, and we're going to write off this. We're going to get you a trademark so you own who you are. We're going to help you negotiate contracts. You're providing value. You're showing how they can be a business and how you're the person to get it done. All right. That's the beauty of NIL. That's the beauty of where you all can come in and really make a killing and educate these kids, show value, and gain trust in the short term and the long term. So before I open it up to questions, I also want to show you how we can help athletes and yourselves. So right now, student athletes aren't disclosing deals. Okay. Schools have many products. They're all over the place. We're with 35 schools, influencers out there, Open Doors, Compass, Spry. The kids ain't using it. All right. The schools are clamoring for the disclosure. So this is another service you can offer. And by the way, for anyone on this call and anyone that signed up, we are going to allow you to have these portals for free from now until September. Okay. We're going to provide a form in the chat that you can fill out and send to our team, or you can contact us and we personalize it. So we started working with Goal Line. These are private URLs. Okay. That you need a password to get into. All right. So you enter it. We're going to get your logo from you. All right. It's loading it over here. All right. Let me pull it over here. So you'll see with the Garnet Trust, right? They're a collective. We'll put your logo here. We'll put your name. We'll put your colors. And now you have a branded portal that you need a password into. I obviously don't know Goal Line's password. They changed it on me. And so you can show when you go into the living room how you're going to help your athletes stay compliant. And this way, by the way, if you represent multiple athletes, you also don't have to hack into a bunch of different profiles and different passwords. You have one for you. All right. So let's run through it. You're always going to put the student athlete's name, their EDU, the school name, and the compliance EDU. And all you got to do for the compliance officers is go to their school website, the athletic directory, and all their emails are there. And you can always reach out to you. We have a log. We can help you with that. So Peter Schoenthal is going to get a deal today. All right. And he goes to Compliance University. And you always have to put in their EDU. Okay. Because that's how we know to make sure it goes to the right place, because a disclosure is going to go to you. It's going to go to the school, and it's going to go to the athlete. All right. So let's do Peter Schoenthal is going to go to Inside the League headquarters, and he's going to meet with a bunch of agents and fans, and he's going to do an Instagram post for Inside the League. So you describe it however you want. You know, Peter Schoenthal, and don't mind my spelling, I'm going to run through this. Peter Schoenthal is going to do an appearance and meet with fans on July 1st for 3 hours. And he will also post a photo on ITL's Instagram page. All right. That's all you got to do on this, right? So now you select the categories that work for you. If it's an appearance or a training camp, you're always going to have to put in the location. If it's photo, if it's other, podcast, print, autograph, social media, location is going to be optional. And you'll see what I mean in a second. All right. So, all right, it's going to be an Instagram post. Cool. All right. So let's put in Inside the League. I'm going to fill this quickly. All right. Now I'm going to give everyone a little trick here. And this is if you're going to work with collectives. Okay. Let's say you're lucky enough to have an athlete that can get that $100,000, $200,000 deal. All right. But you need to make sure that it's not tied to an inducement. But the collective also wants to make sure that athlete's not going to transfer. So if it's a $100,000 deal, this is the way you structure it. Over the next 10 months, Peter Schoenthal is going to do 10 appearances at the following locations. And if I'm a Florida State athlete in Tallahassee, you make all of those locations at Tallahassee businesses, and you can add as many locations as you want. Okay. And trust me, if you have a big time athlete like that, 10,000 an appearance over a year is not a big deal if they have those type of followers. That's really reasonable. Okay. If the athlete transfers, they voided the contract and the contract's breached, and that's it. There might be penalties. You'll deal with that in your negotiations. Okay. Now you can get tricky. And if there's 2 months left on the deal, you can always fly the athlete back in, right? And they can make their money. There's risk on both sides. Both sides have to understand there's no clear path to doing it, but you hold all the power, because if the collective screws you over, you have that transfer portal and you have the ability to talk with other recruits and show them that they can't do this. Now, remember, you cannot talk with collectives about deals until that athlete has signed their letter of intent, though, if you're getting into the representation of high school athletes. So we've got inside the league, we've got the social media where it's at. We're going to put your agency, your contact here, because what you don't want always is the school reaching out straight to the business without you being a liaison, and the schools are okay with that. All right. This also allows you to speak with the schools and be the point person and show how responsible and great you are, which is going to get you value at the school. All right. This is where you talk about the money. You can describe it if you want. You can put an expected date of payment if you want. You don't have to. Or let's say it's $300 because the athlete's getting 6 meals valued at $50 a meal. And you don't always have to know the exact value. It's okay to estimate on this. And then you look here, we have the total value of the opportunity. You let them know if you want to use a trademark logo, if you are going to use the facility and equipment. 99.9% of the time, this will always be a no. And if there's a written agreement, you don't have to give the written agreement right away. Okay. One, most schools don't always want it. 2, you have to be careful, right? As lawyers, if you broker a deal between a business and an athlete, there's not a provision that says you can share that contract. You can get in a little bit of trouble if you automatically share a contract without the consent of that business. So now we review it. Cool. And now we send it off. All right. Once you send this off, you are going to get a copy. The student athlete's going to get a copy in the school. If it's a non-Athliance school, we do this for every school in the country. All right. This is how it comes out. All right. It'll say John Watson has submitted an opportunity from your agency. All right. It's going to talk about the student athlete's name, their school, the opportunity, the description, the categories. The contractor will be you, the payment information, the locations, the social media, and all those questions at the end. Okay. We work with compliance officers daily. We have them on our advisory board. We have pilot schools that we work with daily. This is the exact information they need. This is how they want to view it. You are providing a service and making their life easier. If it's an Athliance school, it's even easier. It will actually go through the student athlete's app as if they disclose it themselves. And I'm just going to run through it very quickly, just so you all can see what it looks like. I'm a Florida State guy. My team knows that they like to mess with me. So there's a bunch of Tim Tebow stuff in here. So we'll go ahead. All right. It looks like I've reviewed all the Tim Tebow stuff, so I don't have to look at it. Nope. Here's one. All right. But let's look at Christian Leitner. All right. So here's how it's going to look, right? The tasks will be in here. This is how the school communicates with the athlete so they can mitigate any issues. The contractor. So once you're in at a school, and I do this, let's say the contractor is the agent. This is what's cool about it, right? The school will be able to go through this quick process. They can, put whatever industry, website, all that. They can auto put this in, right? And now you are registered at this school. You are an approved contact at this school. All right. You're good to go. The location will be up there, the compensation, the notes so the school can protect themselves. I reached out to the agent. I spoke with him. Nice guy, nice girl. He provided the contract. She provided the contract. The contract will live here. Everything is good to go. We don't see any issues. And then we have an audit portal. So the schools are protected for 7 years. Okay. So that's what I've got to show today. That's what I've talked about today. And now I want to turn it over to Q&A and answer any questions about NIL.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
Go ahead, Sly.
All right. So the question is, how does the agent get compensated? Or is this basically something, as far as NIL goes, is this something that gives us leverage, and just like a practice squad, we don't get paid off practice squad, right? So is this sort of like that, or how does that
It's
work?
up to you. It's up to you. Okay. If you want to do it where you're showing value and not making money off it, cool. If you want to structure your representation agreement for a percentage, cool. Here's the one thing I will say. All right. And I don't know if any of you all are on here. We see a lot of contracts come through our system. Don't be that agent that's charging 35% commission fees. Okay. Don't be that agent that is not allowing for accounting in their agreement. That these kids are going to talk. You're going to put yourself in a bad position. Don't overcharge them. We don't handle your agreement. We don't handle how you set up your agreement with the student athlete. That's up to you. Go out and compete. All right. But that's up to you and how you deal with that. We don't handle the money. We just make sure that the information makes its way over to the school where you can provide value. We do some consulting work as well. What we want to do is show everyone in this space what's really out there and what you can do. So these kids can make money legally and safely while also creating value for you as a representative where you can help these student athletes.
Peter, what's standard? 10%, 15%, 20%?
I think anywhere between 10 to 20. I got a question. Is offering free services a recruiting violation? That hasn't been fleshed. I don't see it that way. But if you're worried about that, just charge 5%. Just charge 3%. It doesn't have to be big numbers. The space is still figuring itself out. One of the things that we talk about is there's no such thing as an expert in something that never existed before. And that's sure as heck NIL. Okay. The legislation changes every day. The state bills, no one's gone after anyone. So the best thing that you can do to protect yourself is just make sure you're disclosing everything and you're doing right by the kid. But yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it's worth doing, and at least an incremental amount, like 5%, if you want to just compete and you're not worried about the money. And go from there. That's up to you.
Very cool. Thank you, man.
Yeah, no problem. And again, that software that I showed is free to anyone on here. We're going to send out an email with the form afterwards. We have everyone's email. And all you got to do is fill it out, get us your logos. And then we'll send a service agreement, and you guys at least have something when you go into living rooms to show kids or on Zooms, or if you have kids, you can do mass disclosures and keep them compliant.
Cool. Thank you.
Nick, I see. What's the price after September? We're still working on that because what's going to be coming in September is a full app where you can register kids, all right, where you can have your rosters in there to do multi-athlete deals. You're going to have all your analytics, all your data, and access to all the state bills, and you have a dashboard. We're still working that out. But in the meantime, the portal itself, that WordPress website, that's going to be free for you all. All right, how is our platform different from Open Doors? Great question. One, Open Doors is a marketplace. All right, you can go get deals on there. That's fine, but Open Doors won't disclose every deal everywhere for every student athlete. They're specific to their school. The problem is we do automatic disclosures for collectives, agencies, okay, and marketplaces. We don't compete with anyone, so we were able to do those integrations. Open Doors is a fine company, okay. But they compete with everyone. I mean, they're saying when they got into this is athletes don't need agents. That's not true. We're seeing it. The kids aren't using the marketplace. Unless agents are really going on there doing it, that's fine. But there's stuff that you don't have to do through the school, like Icon Source, Market Price, Dreamfield, Mogul, No Cap. Those are all free. So you don't have to be school specific, and there's other options. But Open Doors is fine if you want to go look for deals. The problem is going to be for you. Listen, if you represent 7 kids and one's at an Athliance school, one's at an influencer school, 2 are at Open Door schools, one's at a Compass school, or let's say you have 9 kids at Open Doors. Now you're trying to log into a bunch of different passwords, logins. We just offer it where you can just do it and not have to worry about that. David Gregory, Athliance is not a marketplace. We never will be. We focus on the compliance side. We focus on the legal side. I was very open with a lot of schools up front that if a school is paying for a marketplace, and the deals are not 50-50 for men and women, you are creating Title IX issues and liability. Unfortunately, we were tipped off that those lawsuits could be coming. And so we understood liability from day one, which is why we decided to sit that one out. But we also knew in our opinion that the kids alone weren't going to use the marketplaces, and they're not. So how can we create a value to the schools by getting all the data to them? And that's what we've solved over the last couple of months. We've been around for 2 years, but again, we're 10 months into this thing, 11 months into this thing. It changes daily. Anyone who says they're an expert is a liar, because no one saw collectives coming, right? So Sean Hughes, our COO, put the Google Doc form in the chat if you want to click on that. Once you fill that out, it triggers us to send you an email as well, and we'll have all your information for the portal.
I have another question.
Yep, come on.
Okay, it's a statement first. So I like how Deion Sanders did what he did over at Jackson State, right? I noticed when I was watching the documentaries that Chevy, the dealerships were, sponsoring certain things. So how would one get a NIL deal with a car dealership in one city?
Reach out. That the biggest thing we're seeing in the space is, if you don't ask, you don't get. If you can show that dealership, all right, and Ryan, you're next. If you can show that dealership, hey, this student athlete is going to do this. These will be the deliverables. This will be the value that we can provide. This is how we would like to work together. When they see that they have representation, when they see someone that's actually going to make sure that they post and do or show up to appearances, and that the deals are going to be buttoned up, they're going to want in. The biggest issue in the space is if you follow the media and you see kids just getting deals knowing that they're not showing up and doing anything, or the way collectives are being portrayed. It's why national companies are slowing down getting into the space. The space is painted as a negative thing. It's painted as pay for play. It's painted as dirty. If we can get the disclosures done and we can lift that veil, it's going to be the greatest thing ever. Okay. Now we do have to worry about fair market value. I've seen a lot of people say that the NCAA will never be able to police that. I disagree. There's a lot of law out there in the mutual fund world about, payments that are payments for services that weren't actually provided. And there's a way to actually go through a fair market value analysis. There is precedent for it. But again, the NCAA, if there's issues, can always retroactively go after people, especially as we go towards the employment model in college athletics, specifically revenue generating sports. That does not mean salaries. It just means the ability to unionize and collectively bargain. And we all know how that can go for athletes, right? That's actually kind of scary if you think about it. But do the right thing. But yeah, listen, man, just reach out, but have a plan when you reach out, right? Like you would, like don't just say reach out and say, hey, I want to do NIL. Show the value of your student athlete and why it's important and why they should work with you. Ryan?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Peter. Just out of curiosity, have you ever come into conflict where a lot of these kids are applying for need-based grants, be it Pell grants or various other federal grants? Have you come into conflict with that, where it's like, hey, maybe we need to cap this marketing deal so you don't screw up your federal funding right there, or how would you handle that?
It's a great question. On our end, what we really do is we make sure the data gets to the school. When it comes to the grants and all that, it's really specific to the school based on cost of living, cost of attendance, all that. That's where the schools are really doing a poor job educating these student athletes, okay? The next things that we're going to see from a litigation standpoint, a legal standpoint, are Title IX issues, liability issues, and exactly what you talked about. This space is going to take 36 to 48 months to figure out. All right. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but it is something that is worth looking into. And it is something that you should be cognizant of, because that could be an issue and no one's talking about it. These schools were not prepared for NIL. This was supposed to start 2023. The great state of Florida, where I live, moved it up to July of 2021 for no reason. Kids weren't on campus. Schools were dealing with COVID. They were waiting on the NCAA. There are a lot of holes and they're going to get exposed, and that's okay. But in the meantime, all right, this is where you can add value. You can talk about that in the living room. You can talk about that with a kid, and parents might see, I haven't heard that from any other agent. He's really protecting, or she's really protecting my kid. That's a value add. Lamar, I see you asked about analytics and pricing yourself. There's a lot that goes into it. We did record this. We can send this out. But if you want, you can email me and we can have a separate conversation, because we did go over that.
Peter, talk a little bit about, I think there's still a perception out there, notwithstanding everything you discussed, among players that, hey, NIL is the road to fast cash. If I were in someone's living room and I wanted to impart to a kid, listen, I'm going to find you deals. and we're going to make you money, but you're going to have to do some certain things. How do you communicate that in a way that doesn't feel like you're convicting the kid? You're just kind of warning him and telling him, listen, there's going to be skin in the game on both of our ends.
Well, there's going to be two things. One, there are active investigations open against 3 schools. I'm not at liberty to say there'll be punishment. That'll be easier when you sell being compliant. Talk about the future, though. Okay, if you take the easy road out and you don't actually do the deliverables, you're going to hurt your brand long term when you get to the NFL. Short, at the end of the day, $100,000, $200,000 is great, but that's not the end goal, right? And so we want to use NIL as a way to prepare you for when you get to the NFL, to cash in on those marketing dollars, that we can show brands, hey, here's the post that we did. Look how professional it is. Here's the metrics. You're selling and getting ready for professional marketing, just like college is getting you ready for the NFL. Okay. And so that's a great way to do it. And again, a lot of it's going to be done in the living room. There's an argument to be made when you're talking with mom and dad. I'd rather these kids make 50, 60, 70 grand a year and mess that money up, learn to live on that budget. So when they make that $2 million, maybe when they go to the NFL, or $900,000, they don't mess that money up. There's actually like a beauty to it. And if you know how to sell the space and the beauty of it, you can really provide value. Jonathan, great question on international students. Our opinion is do not do any NIL deals for international students. We see people thinking they found loopholes. It ain't up to you on how you interpret it. It's up to the federal government. And once you end up in court, or once you violate a visa long-term, all right, if you're having to fight that in court, you've already lost. All right. So that's something that we would recommend. Don't be the first.
Peter, can you talk a little bit about, I'm certainly not an expert in social media. You're far more advanced than I am, but as far as the analytics that matter, the metrics that matter, are all those the standard part of any Twitter or Instagram account, or do I need to set up a certain way, or maybe click a certain setting or anything like that to be able to provide those kinds of numbers to people?
With Twitter, I'm unsure, but like with Instagram, if you literally go to your profile settings, you can switch over to business right away, and it allows you to get your analytics. I mean, again, we talk about the living room. Go in. I'm going to set you up an LLC. I'm going to convert you to a business profile. In this hour meeting, while talking about all this good stuff, I've just made you a business, right? So those are little tricks you can do in the living room. Lamar asked about any issues with tax implications. Yeah, we know that there's a bunch with that. This is a value that you can add, making sure that you're keeping track of all of your student athletes, NIL opportunities, having an accountant on deck, making sure that they're properly filing. It's another value that you can add. It's another form of protection that you can sell.
So that comes with this service right here.
You'll have the data, right? So
that's cool. I like that.
When the app comes out, it's going to be right on your dashboard. Listen, the cool thing about the app is, let's say, and that comes out in September, let's say you represent 9 kids and you do, $600,000 total. When you go to a living room, you pull out the app, you can show them the data that you did, the average deal that you did. And by the way, you'll be able to import all of that data per the athlete. And then you'll be able, what we do is called fact tax reporting. All right. And that'll happen on the app in the short term. And why part of it's free, you're going to have to kind of store your PDFs. All right. You're always going to know through the app who paid the athlete, how much, what service, and what state. Okay. So now you can provide that to the accountant. These kids have no idea what 1099s are. All right. Think about a 1099 if you don't educate a kid. You're going to get paid. And then 7 months later, you're going to get a piece of paper in the mail that says you owe this money, send it. It sounds like a scam, right? We know student athletes that were throwing 1099s away left and right. That's how they ended up in this mess. So that's where you can provide that service, that guidance, but also use our software to stay on track of all this, so you can make sure that the kids are staying compliant with their taxes.
Oh yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Yep.
We're coming to the end of the hour, guys. So if you have any questions, please get them in. I don't want anyone to get off this call without having all your questions answered. Peter's easy to reach too. I don't know if your DMs are open on Twitter or not, Peter, but I think your email is out. Well, your email address is part of the registration part, is right there.
Yeah, my email address is out there, and you can follow me on Twitter at NIL Made it real easy for you.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
So how do we go about with like, you know, like most schools like Jackson State, they already have an NIL set up. Like Texas, they already have an NIL set up for their guys. So how do we go about like that with try to differentiate like how much we get from the kid, or how will we be able to go work that deal out?
Okay. Are you referring to collectives?
Yes, like in NIL.
All right. So when it comes to, all right, the schools aren't specifically brokering the deals. They can't. They make, all right, the big issue in the space is everyone makes these big ass announcements and they don't do anything. Like Ohio State, like we have a member on each team that does NIL. No. What that person is they have another job. And if McDonald's calls and says, I want to speak with CJ Stroud, they just connect them. I mean, that's really all they do. All right. If what we can do, and Neil, maybe we can send this out, or we'll figure it out. You can reach out to me. There are websites out there that follow all of the collectives, like for Texas, like Horns with Hearts, right? Where like they want to do deals with Texas athletes. Their contact information is on there. So all you do is you send an email and say, hey, I represent so-and-so. I'd like to talk to you about getting involved in NIL. Set up a meeting, and now you're negotiating. Now you're doing what an agent really does, and you're protecting your kid. You're showing the collective that that kid is a real kid, that's going to have someone in their corner, making sure that they're actually carrying out the actual deal and the deliverables, and they'll be more inclined to want to work with you over and over and over. And by the way, that could help you get more kids at that university.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yep.
Peter, if you don't mind, I did have a question.
Yep.
So, for the states that do not require, because some states have adjusted their athlete agent registration process to include NIL language, but there are also states that do not have, are not a part of the Uniform Athlete Agent Act at all. So for those schools in those states, when you have a kid, let's just say hypothetically, if you have a kid that's at one of those schools in that state that you're looking to sign, upon signing that kid, is it still in our best interest to still go through that school? Or because they don't have any type of Uniform Athlete Agent Act with any NIL rules that come into play, does it matter as much?
Are you talking about registering with the state?
Right. Well, not only the state, but also because some schools
Require registration.
Yeah. So, right. And some schools really don't, you know, they
listen, this is super simple. And I like this question. The more is better, right? Because again, you're showing value to the school, and you all know if compliance likes you, it makes your life a whole lot easier. You can reach out to them and ask them via email, how do you want me to proceed? I'm representing this student athlete. What's the best way to go about it? Do you require registration? Or what you can do is most schools, I'd say, especially every Division I school, if you like type in like Auburn NIL policy, right? It's going to take you to their NIL policy, and it's going to outline all of that, right? So you can read the state bill, you can read the school policy, but if you want to just shortcut it, I would email the school and say, hey, look, I'm talking with so-and-so. I'm going to be representing him on some deals. Is there anything that you would like me to do in the form of registration, or any information you would like me to provide, so I can make sure that I'm keeping all parties compliant? If you say that, they're going to love you. The problem with compliance right now, and why they're being so restrictive, is in their opinion, they're basically getting 20% of all the deals disclosed, and they're not being in contact with agents, right? So they feel in the dark, and they were excited for this because this was the first time in their careers they were going to get to say yes. So they feel like they're not. When they feel like they're not in the dark, they're gonna be much more lenient. Okay, so I would just reach out, and now you're showing you're one of the good guys, good women, and it's gonna allow you, all right, to have easier access at that school. David Gregory, we disclose to every school in the country. So if it's a non-Athliance school, they'll still get that PDF, which is better than anything they're getting right now. And if it's an Athliance school, it'll actually go through our portal.
Excellent. And if you don't mind, one more question.
Come on, bring it.
So if you have a kid, and I heard you speak earlier about a lot of the local deals, right? And perhaps having a kid that's playing, you know, as you said, in Tallahassee, but let's just say they're from Charlotte, North Carolina, right? Even though they're playing for Florida State, but they're from Charlotte, North Carolina. Have you found any success getting deals for them in their hometown in addition to where they're playing?
Absolutely. And again, if you can show value and you can reach out to these businesses and lay out a good plan on how you would approach this and why that athlete is valuable, you're good to go, right? Listen, we talked about it earlier, right? You might be a backup offensive lineman at Florida State, right? And not have the most value in Tallahassee, but back in Charlotte, North Carolina, in your hometown, in your high school, you're a big name. There's value in those local restaurants. They want to help their athletes. NIL, if you do it the right way, it could be cool. Absolutely. The best places to look for local deals is hometown and college town. Great question.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we're at the hour mark. If anyone has any questions for Peter or for me, please don't hesitate to reach out. My DMs are open. Most of y'all know me anyway. Some of you don't. Peter and I have discussed the idea of possibly having another one of these. I would presume if we were, we'd probably get into more the nuts and bolts of actually maybe a case study on, I have a player at this kind of school. He plays this position. What would be my approach there? What would be my philosophy? Whereas I got a player at a different school, different conference, different position, what have you. There are a lot of things obviously to unpack, and we only had an hour tonight. So if that's something y'all have interest in, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are just scratching the surface of what Peter knows, and there's so much more to know. And I want everyone to have as much information as they possibly need. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Peter or to both of us. I'm going to thank Peter for your time, man. It's been a great hour. It's been very informational to someone like me who doesn't know a whole lot. And hopefully it was to everyone else. But if this is your introduction to me or to Peter, thanks so much for coming aboard and joining us tonight. Look forward to working with y'all in the future. If you're already part of the ITL family, I love you, and I appreciate having you on board as well. So I'm going to say goodnight to everyone, and thanks again for participating. And maybe we'll see you on down the line soon.
Thanks,
Good night,
everyone. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. At NIL Pete, give me a follow on Twitter. We'll chop it up.